everyone. Welcome back to another JCT Talks podcast.
In today's video, we will be talking about jobs and manufacturing.
Check out our Instagram for exclusive content and make sure to post to our Reddit to be featured in a future video.
Please like this video and subscribe to the channel.
Now, on to the podcast. If you didn't know, this video is our season finale for season 3 for JCT Talks, which is huge. And Callum and I thought that we would end the season with jobs in manufacturing as the episode topic. Now, this is a really interesting topic because really every single country runs off of jobs for their economy, right? Because even though if every country doesn't have manufacturing, because the top 5 are China, the US, Japan, but most countries might not have manufacturing, right? Because it's expensive. You have to have these big factories. You got to be able to produce products. You got to have the materials. So most countries have farming, making technology, doing something else, right? So it's interesting to see how different and diverse each country is with what jobs they offer. And in America, over 12 million Americans are employed from manufacturing because America is the second largest manufacturing base for a country. And most recently, vaccines have been getting manufactured, right? So all Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, all of those vaccines have to be manufactured somewhere, right? You can't just magically appear in your hand. They're all manufactured in a factory. So it's really interesting to see how manufacturing works, because if you ever have the chance, I would highly recommend touring a factory or virtually touring a manufacturing facility, because it's super interesting, right? And Henry Ford invented the assembly line, right? And it's pretty cool. But it's really changed everything how we manufacture today, because almost everything is made in an assembly line. All the phones, if you ever seen Apple assembly lines, it's crazy. One person's putting on phone cameras all day long, right? It's interesting. And every single thing that we have is manufactured. So my microphone, manufactured. My computer, it's manufactured. But one of the things that I find is super interesting is that manufacturing is different in different countries, right? So there's different rules, right? So there's going to be different, of course, rules the factory has to be this temperature for the employees get this much time off, right? Of course, they have human rights. But then, of course, there's different there's different things being manufactured, right? So in America, there might be more vaccines compared to, I don't know, let's say Sweden, because they might not have as large a population that needs the vaccine, or they might not have access to get the raw materials, right? So it's interesting. And also, it depends on where those companies are based, right? So if a company is based in America, there's a chance that they're probably, if they could choose any country, it would be America if they'd have to choose randomly. But China is also very high. If you've ever seen it, almost everything I've seen is made in China, right? Because one in 4 of your products that are manufactured, they're from China, right? So that's interesting. And made in China is so it's just something that I just know, right? Because I've been growing up on products that are made in China, and it's interesting. And in certain countries, they have, made in this country, because that's on every single thing that's manufactured. It says made in China, made in Sweden, made in Germany, made in Japan, right? And it's interesting. And I think that it's cool that I can have something that was made in China, right? Or made in Vietnam, because that's interesting, right? To see how everything works. Now, of course, it's going to be different from something that's made in another country, because materials are also different, right? Because something that made in China might be cheaper than in America because materials are more expensive. Think about it. Gas, the national gas shortage that we're having right now, it's crazy. Now, all the materials that are being shipped in America, they're going to be more expensive now because gas is more expensive, right? That's interesting. And it's always affected, because if a country is doing worse, and specifically the coronavirus has affected a lot of manufacturing, because think about it. If you're in a factory, if you've ever seen an assembly line, people are packed, right? The owner wants to see I want more people on the assembly line so it can go faster and be more thorough. But with the coronavirus, You can't do that, right? You got to do 6 feet. You got to have max. It's like hard to do that. And that's why they have, oh, now it's all spread out. And that's why manufacturing slowed down, right? And some factories even had to close, right? And that's super interesting in how the coronavirus has affected manufacturing because, like, it's really stopped the growth. And think about it, if the owner doesn't need more people in his factory, what is he going to do? Oh, he's going to lay off those employees, right? And that's where jobs in the coronavirus has really, all jobs have decreased, and it's really become a major like shortage, and like there's been a lot of people that are unemployed, and it's really, really sad. So yeah. Callum, would you like to add on to my jobs in manufacturing?
Yeah, you covered manufacturing pretty well. So I'll talk about like jobs and everything. So yeah, I mean a lot of people have jobs, and a lot of people you need jobs. Some people there are a lot of jobs out there too. I think that we've covered that before. There are so many jobs out there, and you can also create new jobs, right? There are new jobs being made very soon. Always there will be in the future, and it's really interesting. Like, you might think, oh, we've discovered every job, there's no more jobs out there, but who knows, there could be a job where you go into space and you look at it, and that's your job. You're a space critic, maybe you're a space critic, that could be a job in the future. You never know. Like, yeah, some people's jobs are food critics. You go to different restaurants, you rate their food, and you make articles about it, their restaurant and everything. And then people are like, oh, look at this restaurant, they rated it 5 stars, and they said that the cheese is amazing, so I'm going to go there. And then that's your job. But the other thing with that is that you can also be helping out other people. Well, that you can be helping out people, and you can also bring people down. You could go to a really bad restaurant and be like, this place was terrible, and then everyone's like, oh, we're not going to go there then. And then you can say, this place is amazing, and everyone's like, okay, we want to go there then. But of course, it could also be different between your likings. You might of course, food critics normally judge normally not all about the food, but also about how clean it is, how nice the workers are, how well organized it is. So then that's another way that you rate stuff, not all about food, because everyone has different likings on food. So that's there really is a lot of jobs out there, and it just, if you look up US job list, it's gonna go down for you. You could be scrolling for hours. I mean, it really, there is a lot of jobs out there, and there are so many jobs that you haven't even heard about. You might be like, and like the thing is, and why you haven't heard about these until you might meet someone, and you're like, it's not as it's more common than you think, but you've just never heard about it. So that means that there could be like much jobs that you've never heard about, and you meet someone that's their job, and you finally learn about it, because that's how you learn about it. So there are so many jobs out there, and when you really do want to become get higher education, become a worker at NASA, that means you got to work long hours every day. I mean, one wrong mistake can ruin the whole plan. Everything can really go wrong by one simple mistake that might not even, like in school, might not seem like a bad problem. Oh, you were doing this test with 20 questions and you got one wrong, that's okay. Where in these jobs like that, oh, you got 1 out of 1,000 questions on the test. Okay, I'm sorry, but we're not going to accept you. So it really is, you really got to overcheck your work, and like, you are going to make mistakes, and that's just, I mean, you're always going to make mistakes. That's why in those jobs like that, you always look over your work. Even now you should be looking over your work. You're like, okay, is this right? Let me look over it. Okay. Yeah. But they don't look over it once. They might look over it multiple times, like 10 times even, look at over all this work, because one wrong mistake can really lead into a whole $1 billion experiment to not work because of one little mistake. So it does seem like a lot of pressure, but I mean, people really do enjoy that. Maybe and you have people that also that's their job. They look over stuff. They're the editor, like the editor in the books. You're like, okay, I've written this book. I'm going to give it to this editor, and then the editor will look it over and fix all the mistakes and all of the stuff that doesn't make sense. The editor will come with to me, and then I'll fix that and all that stuff, right? And that's why it's like, written by, whoever, and then edited by, whoever, because, maybe it's always good to get somebody to look over your work because maybe you won't spot the problems because you remember it and everything. So then when you have someone new, they're like, that doesn't make the most sense, because maybe it makes sense in your head, but maybe it doesn't make sense in other people's, brains too. That's another job, editing, and editing videos too. You might need an editor. Of course, Jake edits our videos, and I'm sure that there is so much stuff that he might need to take out. He's like, well, what is this part, and then it's like, it's 10 minutes of silence. He's like, okay, I'm probably gonna cut that out. No, who knows? I mean, because that's what you need. You need an editor. You need someone to look over your work. You're like, oh, these people, these really popular YouTubers, they don't need an editor because they actually make good stuff. Oh, no, 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 no. They probably make the same stuff that you do. They just have really good editing and a really good editor that edits all their stuff down. And instead of it being like a 20-30 minute long video of just like really long pauses and really awkward moments, it'll be a 7-minute video, and it's just really fast paced and it's really nice. That's what you need to do. Like in my local mountains episode, I spent hours and hours and hours editing that one, from maybe around 30 minutes of footage down to 7 minutes. So it definitely does take a lot of that, because it's like, oh, that's a really shaky shot. You can't have that in, and it's all that. So then you need to find the perfect shots. So that's another thing. Like that was a job even, and there are just really a lot of jobs, and really a lot of everything in manufacturing too. There's a lot that you do. And like, I like how Jake pointed out how China has so much manufacturing, because it's true. I mean, you buy something at the store, and then behind the thing that you bought, it says made in China. And it's because they do a lot of manufacturing. They got a big population. They got more people to do it too. That's why that's why a lot of stuff that you buy is made in China. And everything you buy is normally manufactured, unless you make something, I guess. But still, if you make something, let's just say you make something out of wood, and you're like, oh no, it wasn't manufactured because I made it out of wood. Well, if you bought the wood at the store, that was manufactured. So, I mean, I guess, unless you, cut down a tree, got all the wood out, made it yourself, sanded everything down, and then do that, then it's manufactured by you in a way. But really, yeah, there's just a lot to talk about on this topic, because there really is so much jobs and so much manufacturing out there. And like, I like how Jake said, like people at the, Apple or Samsung or wherever you work, for the phones, they might spend all day putting cameras on, the iPhone. And, you look at that, you're like, oh, that's easy. I could do that. But if you really did, if you really did, if you really did, that's like a B or something. I don't know. If you really did put in the, if you really did go there and stuff, and you just saw like, oh, you gotta do it really fast, because if you do it slow, you're gonna miss all these phones, and then the next person that does their job's like, wait, where's the camera? So then you gotta go fast, and you gotta do it right, and it's all this like something. There are TV shows that also show a lot of manufacturing, like How It's Made. Has anyone seen that? Yeah. That shows a lot of manufacturing, and like how it's made, how they make it and manufacture it and sell it. They don't show how they sell it, but they show how they present it, how they present it, like in the bottles and everything else. So it really does show everything. It shows like, oh, this person grabs this load of dough and puts it in this machine to get out all of the bad stuff in the dough, and then they take it out and put it on the tray where it goes down to the next person to inspect the dough, and that's what this person does. So it also shows that with jobs and manufacturing. So that's a great show. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend it. if you want to learn more about jobs in manufacturing and all of that stuff, and well, how things are made. But really, there is so much jobs and there's so much manufacturing out there, and new stuff's just gonna keep happening. New jobs are gonna keep being, released, and I mean, people have jobs as streamers or YouTubers, where they, get to edit videos and like, you're like, oh, that's my dream job because it looks so easy and fun. Those people, that's a job. I mean, you gotta think like that is their job. They're filming an hour's worth of videos a day, and then they're, getting it onto their editor, and they're spending 3 hours a day editing. So they're doing the same amount of work, but then they release it, and then it takes a few hours to release. And then, you're like, that's a done day's work right there. So it really, there is so much jobs and stuff, but I think that's going to finish me up if Jake wants to add anything else.
Yeah, I'll finish the podcast, but it's jobs are interesting, right? Because like Callum said, like our podcast is jobs, right? Like pointed out, all YouTube channels have a job, right? Like you got to edit the video, you got to film the video, like you got the person who produces the video, who edits, the person who makes the thumbnails, Callum, he's a great thumbnail maker right there, right? So you got to have all these people to make an operation, but really anything it can be with jobs, right? So if you have a family, that's a full operation of jobs, right? Because you like the person who does the dishes, the person who folds the laundry, the person who vacuums, right? So it's interesting to see how everywhere has a job, even if it doesn't include being paid, right? So it's interesting because even if you don't get paid, just doing something might be, but also some people might not consider it a job, right? If you have so much fun, you gotta be like, oh, this isn't a job. This is my life. I have fun with it, right? And the usual saying is higher education, higher pay. And it's interesting because the jobs that now there's some jobs that if you don't have an education and that you still can get paid a lot, but it's usually if you have a college education, you can be more open to jobs, right? Like you can have a more wide spectrum of jobs that you can choose from. And really, education is important because you can learn a lot, right? And just with trade schools, like you can learn the trade, and that is still considered education, right? Because you're not going to want a plumber that has a degree in medicine, right? Like, how's that going to help? That's why jobs have specific industries. So, oh, you have the plumbing industry, those people learn plumbing, right? Like, that's all they do but they don't. If you put a plumber in a surgical situation, you aren't going to have them start performing surgeries, right? Like that's the thing. That's how there's industry. So there's the medical industry. There's a lot of different industries that like people can choose from, and it's crazy because it's usually in like middle school, high schools when people like kind of choose their jobs and like, oh, this is what I'm going to do in life, because that's when like, oh, in college is the degree I'm going to get, right? So it's interesting how much it takes to get a degree and how much it takes to get a job, right? Like a paying job. And of course there are jobs where like the high schoolers get, right? Like you don't need a college education, like the ice cream store, right? Or like fast food chains. McDonald's came to my head, but like you usually like it's usually people that like it's like a simple job that you can get, right? Also like manager at McDonald's, that pays well, right? Like you can make money. It's not like, oh, if you work in the fast food industry, you're not going to make money. It's like there's people who are franchise owners or managers. It's really cool to see how like management works and how jobs work. So that's going to finish up the podcast unless Callum has anything else to add.
No, I think you covered everything pretty well. But yeah, like you were saying, like, yeah, if you're in high school or college, mostly you get like a little part-time job that, maybe only pays, like 15, 14, $13 an hour, just to make yourself some money, of course, because, of course you can't work full-time because you're still in school, but you can still work part-time just to make a few dollars. And, then afterwards you can, what your profession is, you can, look around for jobs, do interviews. Oh, okay. Hey, Kat, you can do interviews and, you can see, okay, this company is the best for me because it yeah, because it has good people, has a great
Okay, well, I'm going to cut away from Callum for a second. That is hilarious, and I'm definitely leaving this in the episode. But yeah, thank you so much for watching today's JCT Talks podcast. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe for Callum's cat, who just tore down his window. Callum, would you like to talk about our JCT Talks social media?
Yeah. So we got the Instagram and the Reddit. Join the you can follow the Instagram for exclusive content, and you can join the Reddit and post stuff that will be featured in a future episode. All those links will be in the description below.
Yeah, thank you so much, and we will see you next Wednesday. Bye.
Bye.